Hello, everybody. My name's Kert Browne, currently working for Blindside, primarily dealing with the upgrade of the new whiteboard, moving to tldraw's version 2 that's recently been released in the latest alpha version. It has quite a few upgrades and new features compared to V1, so I'll go through some of them and show you what it's looking like. I currently have it set up working with the new branch, um, basically pulling in the GraphQL data and using basically that source of information for the whiteboard. So if you can see my screen right now, I basically have two screens, one for the presenter and a regular viewer. Um, as of right now, the UI looks almost the same. The toolbar is in the same sort of position, but one of the noticeable changes is the style menu. So if we were to draw a shape, tdraw has added a bunch of different style options. So they removed the fill option and just added that as a sort of a box fill shape. So once you create a box, it's automatically hollowed, and then you can either style it depending on what sort of fill you want. That also changes with the colors, and then pretty much the line sizes and the text. One of the noticeable differences with the text sort of options, they were previously using sort of remote text from Google that we had to do some workarounds for privacy reasons, but all that's been removed. So on the BigBlueButton side, we don't have to handle any of that anymore. Uh, all of the fonts are local to tldraww, and they don't have to reach out to go anywhere for them. And they've done some improvements to the labels of the shapes. So any shape that you draw now, you can basically write text into the shape. And they've added some basically extra alignment tools. So you have the regular left, right, or center, but now you also have the up or bottom or middle. So you just have more control over where you can actually place these labels in your shapes now. And then there's a plethora of new shapes that were added. Once you create a shape, if you want it to switch to a different shape, you can just click on the shape option in the styles menu and select any of the new shapes, and it'll basically just automatically change it to whatever you want it to be. Just pretty neat. One thing that was introduced as one of the new shapes that's kind of interesting, it's called a frame. Now, for a frame, you can basically give it any kind of label that you want. But what makes a frame interesting is it is a shape annotation, and you can draw over it. And that's just a normal sort of line that will draw over this shape. But if you were to draw from within the frame itself, it restricts all annotations to be basically only visible from the frame itself. So if I were to start drawing a line from within the frame, it basically wouldn't leave the frame. It's basically trapped within this box. But you can also move the shapes inside the frame, out of the frame, and vice versa, which is pretty nifty. There was one other sort of feature that came with these sort of new way that tldraww is handling the shapes. So previously in all the other versions of BigBlueButton, when the presenter wants to share a link or parse a link from the slide data, we usually had a option come up at the bottom that told you that you had some links, and then you could basically open them that way via the toolbar. But with the new tldraww, they sort of have an interesting new feature where any shape that you draw, you now have a link button where you can basically add any link that you want to the shape. So we'll just do BigBlueButton.org. And then once that link's been added to the shape, you'll notice that the viewers also got access to that link via the shape. So all they have to do is click on the link pop-up and it'll go to whatever sort of URL that was posted or pasted in the shape by the presenter. So that's actually pretty nifty. one other thing, the last summit, we were trying to leverage tdraw to see if we could do the whiteboard vision. This time we wanted to basically see if we could try something else with having just an infinite canvas, because as of right now, the sort of canvas area is restricted to the size of the slide, but that's not necessarily needed all the times. So the presenter may want to sort of pan away from the slide, just opening up the canvas if you have a lot more students and you need more room to draw. So this was pretty easy to do with tldraw. So now we can just push to the viewers whatever the camera view or position of the camera for the presenter, so that basically it opens up the unlimited canvas for whoever needs it to be used. This is super useful if you have a bunch of students all working on different items, or a template that you loaded that has a bunch of boxes for students to be working in. They can basically just go off and all be working on the same whiteboard within their restricted area. Now, tdraw does have a sort of UI so that when the multi-user whiteboard is in, or not multi-user, when the infinite canvas is enabled, you would be able to see users' cursors and shapes that are off screen, and that'll just allow people to see things that are not directly visible on their screen. But this brings us to something else that we were trying to leverage from the new tdraw, which was sort of templates. So being able to create a bunch of shapes that you could eventually just load into a meeting. So the example was using tldraw's just regular demo website. And I just created a bunch of shapes. Doesn't matter what it is really. And then you just have to save them here. File, save, copy as. And I already have a saved file here, but we just give it a new name. So that basically just saved a text file to my desktop. And now if I come back to any meeting on any slide, we added a new load.tldr sort of option. So I can just go to this in any meeting and then click on one of the saved templates and have that loaded up for the users. There's a sort of a refresh issue happening right now. So once I reload this, it will also show up for the presenter as well. But these are just easy ways of sort of getting shape data, or templates rather, back into the whiteboard. That's pretty much it for the moment. The only other thing are some updates that will be coming from the tdraw side itself. Like if you notice, this styles menu is sort of kind of huge and just takes up a lot of space. So if you don't have the hide toolbars on, which will hide all of these sort of menu items, there's also the option of when tdraw pushes their changes, that style menu will basically live in this sort of button, essentially. And from this point, this is what we will be forcing for all UI sizes, just so that you don't have that big sort of style menu taking up too much space. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And just to show the frame, so you could have one student sort of drawing in this frame. Yeah, that's
Kert,
pretty much it.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks.
No problem.